So ritual celebrations were deeply ingrained in the culture of these new believers. Yet they also were meant to honor some of the myriad pagan gods that these people had worshipped. The missionaries knew that if they forbade all established celebrations, they might face a revolt that would cripple their ministry. These godly men also recognized that these poor people needed celebrations to bring joy to their often bleak lives. So the missionaries worked out a compromise that would ultimately become a part of the way Christ's resurrection would be celebrated around the world. To those living in the British Isles and Northern Europe, winter was a trying time. The days were long and cold. Each year, due to frigid temperatures, lack of food, and rampant disease, many died during this season. So when the snow and dark days gave way to flowers and warmer weather, these people believed it was a time for celebration dedicated to the gods or goddesses of spring, fertility, and the rising sun. In some of these Teutonic cultures, a month-long holiday was declared because the goddess Esther, one of the many spring gods and goddesses, had again brought the warm days of spring. Because of this goddess, every person had new life and hope. Knowing they would be unable to stop the actual pagan spring custom, the missionaries simply converted the holiday as they converted the men and women. Thus the celebration of Esther became Easter, and the new life celebrated was no longer a gift of pagan gods, but rather a natural transformation to the rebirth guaranteed to Christians through Christ's ultimate sacrifice. As missionaries spread the good news across Europe and Asia, they discovered similar pagan gods that legend claimed were at least in part responsible for the new life that appeared each spring. The Phoenicians had Astarte, which, as it crossed through Europe, had morphed into Astarte and Ostara. As they had in northern Europe, missionaries continued to use the customs of the people's history as a basis for the resurrection celebration. Thus the name Easter, likely derived from the name of the Teutonic pagan goddess, became the most common term for this new holiday. Although millions of Christians now recognized it, there was still no set date for this special weekend. Thus, for more than 3 centuries, Easter Sunday was celebrated at scores of different times, depending on when the warm winds of spring began to blow or when the Jewish Passover was celebrated. In 325, the leaders of a now tightly organized church felt the Christian calendar needed structure. Without set dates, it was hard to control the manner in which believers celebrated the various holidays. So the church hierarchy met in what is now known as the Council of Nicaea. At this meeting, the leaders decided on certain edicts and gave their report to Emperor Constantine. Since Constantine was now a Christian and the world's most powerful ruler, the council knew his decrees would carry great weight with the Christian population. 2 of the leaders' pronouncements announced the setting of official dates for Christmas and Easter. Christmas Day was set as December 25. Since this was the time when Roman cultures already celebrated the winter solstice, this date was chosen in an attempt to put a religious spin on the ancient holiday. But Easter was more of a challenge. Since at least part of the church celebrated Easter in conjunction with Passover, it was deemed that this connection should be continued. Since Easter was observed in the spring, this would also connect with the times many other Christian groups celebrated Easter. Yet as Passover moved from year to year in conjunction with the cycle of the moon, the council did not feel it could set aside one spring weekend for Easter. Instead, they opted to embrace a date based on Jewish customs. Thus, Easter became a mobile holiday. The new law stated that Easter would be celebrated on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox. The full moon in the council's ruling was the ecclesiastical full moon, which was defined as the 14th day of a tabular lunation. Therefore, Easter would be celebrated on a Sunday between the dates of March 22 and April 25. In Constantine's day, many depended on the cycles of the moon to determine when to plant, herd, and even travel. Additionally, Jews had been using this lunar system for centuries to determine when to mark Passover.